So, welcome to Walpole United WFC.
Hi guys, Walpole United WFC. Thanks for tuning in. I can see already comments coming in. John, big man, I'm in your seat tonight. Connor's in my seat, and obviously the lovely Nancy again. I'm so happy that you're on, Nancy. Great to have you. Vicky, hi. Guys, drop your comments in. Karen, hi guys. So yeah, like you said, John's ill. We've not seen him all week. Hopefully he's back next week and get some order restored. But yeah, it's me hosting tonight, and I hope you're all well. And just before this show, I did something really big for the channel. So, keep tuning in. There's going to be a big, massive show that we're all going to love soon. So definitely keep tuning in. Connor, thank you for filling in as my wingman tonight. How are you doing?
Yeah, no worries. Thanks. Like I put in my tweet earlier, I always appreciate every chance I get to come on this channel as well. So yeah, I'm excited to talk some women's football because the men's game has kind of been a bit overwhelming the last 48 hours or so. So yeah, let's do it.
Yeah. We're not here to talk about that. And, if you want to talk about that, we'll talk about it after. I want to talk about this. Nancy, getting a good welcome. Welcome back. It was a good show when you came on last time. I loved it. We're chatting away. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm good, thanks. Yeah, I'm really excited to be back. And now that the season's actually underway, because I think last time I was there, it was before the season has started. So we can actually now look at some of the results and stuff. So, yeah, happy to be back.
Yeah, this is my first time hosting, so it might not be the best, guys, but bear with us. Listen, I want to get straight into it. This is why I wanted you on, Nancy, because like you said, the last time we were talking about if, buts and maybes. I think we need to talk about it straight to the point now. And, we were talking about Man United just finished 1 point off Arsenal, and there's a chance they can do this, they can do that. And, for me, still there. We can do anything. We can do anything we want. We could still win the league. I know we won't, but, we could still potentially. But what do you think about the pathways that both clubs have gone on then? So Arsenal got that Champions League and obviously started their season early. The Champions League qualifications was basically like the pre-season for them. And obviously United have had good results. Maybe not against the best teams that they've played, but we got a draw against City, was happy with. What do you think of United so far, Nancy? How do you think, Skinner coming in, the players they brought in, what do you think?
Yeah, I think it's, with the comparison with Arsenal, it's really similar at the start of the season because they both had new managers that they needed to, I thought there was going to be time for both managers to bed in for both teams, but Arsenal have kind of just somehow managed to gel straight away. I think Man U are still definitely in the process of new manager and just finding the style of play and finding their feet a bit. I mean, it's not, like you said, it's not been a bad season at all. And I think because it's been so unpredictable, obviously City have been tanking a bit at the moment, and I think people thought Everton would be better. And then you've got teams like Brighton and Spurs doing better maybe than expected. And Man U were completely in the mix. So even though maybe it's not been kind of consistent wins, I still think it's been a good season when you consider what's happened to City or Everton. I think just staying in the mix at the moment, I think is a good outcome.
Jonas got them off to a fast start. I expect them to win the league, and he's done fantastic. Connor, you weren't really watching last year, but you obviously heard about what happened when Katie left, and then obviously Mark's come in. You got involved. You watched your first game versus Reading. Watching a lot of women's football. So what do you think of Arsenal? Would you have expected them to have been 1 point behind us last year?
I mean, last year, no, probably not. I think from the information I've gathered, I think United, obviously, I don't think we lost in the first 11, 12 games, I think it was. It was a Chelsea game that was the first loss. And then obviously we know how the season ended. And I think Arsenal didn't really do much special. Obviously, they just won the games, which you have to do. Beat what's in front of you, the old saying. But I think, obviously, we all know last season United threw it. So you can't really read too much into, because I said the Reading game at home, Brighton away. I think lost quite a few games to, I think, 4 in the last 7 or 8. I think it was. Obviously that's what cost. So I don't think you can really look at the back end of last season because of just the way it went. We all know what happened. Obviously with Casey, probably had a head turned and things like that. So you come into this season, both new management, but it does seem like Arsenal have the more stability at the moment. United are still kind of finding their way. It is a completely different system. I think that's the key thing with United. Arsenal, it's a different system, but it's not too much of a big change. With United, it's such a big difference. The way that Skinner wants to play, I say it all the time, with the high fullbacks and you want one of your midfielders to drop into a back three. That's not happening. We're playing with inside forwards now, which is, Galton and Hansen haven't really grasped yet. We're playing without a striker for the first 3 games, so it's not surprised that we've had to adapt more than maybe other clubs, but we're still in the mix. And I think that's the main thing. Obviously, the only 2 games, only 1 game we've lost is against Chelsea, which, you can talk about that game all you want, but, at the start of the season, you probably wouldn't have put us down for a win there anyway, maybe a draw, and same with the City game. So it's not been awful considering the massive overhaul we've had to do, and we've lost some key players. And like I said, it's a big system change. I think with the lack of pre-season, well, look at how late Mark came in. He didn't come in till back end of pre-season, so it's not like he had a full summer working on this. So yeah, just got to be a bit patient with it, I feel.
Yeah. Nancy, what do you think? Because obviously what Connor said is, I totally get it. Mark's coming in, it's a different style of play, different tactics having to get used to. But as well, I do see a lot of comparisons in us and Arsenal. I think Danielle van der Donk left, Jill Road left. I know we lost the Americans and LJ. So we both lost, big players. Both had new managers. Do you think it's because maybe there is more stability? Arsenal have been going on for, been top team for years. We're just trying to break that now. Do you think Jonas he maybe benefited, maybe keeping the same sort of style of play, just changing a little bit? Whereas do you think maybe you could say Mark's trying to change too much? Or do you think no, it's just because, Arsenal have had those early games, like Vicky's saying it, early Champions League games, if it works. So it's benefited them more. What do you think it is?
Yeah, I think that under Montemurro, I feel like the style of play now is similar, but Jonas has just basically enhanced it. So he hasn't really changed it. He's identified the weaknesses that Arsenal had last season, and then just slightly modified it. So it's not kind of, I think one of the main things is that I've noticed Arsenal this season if they can, they will play direct or long balls over the top. So both for Chelsea and City games, that's basically how we won it, by those balls going over the defence. When with Montemurro, Arsenal wouldn't have played like that. It would have just been, the patient build up. So I think because it's not completely different, but yeah, I think he's just enhanced the style of play, so it's not too much of a change. And then I think the players as well, obviously there were big players that went, like Van der Donk and Jill Roord, but I think maybe the players that Man U lost were of more significance. I think especially Heath and Press. And then the players maybe that Arsenal bought in, I think were maybe just of a higher quality. I think the Arsenal team has improved since last season, but I think the Man U team maybe has stayed around the same. So I do think the players that went and were bought in. If you think about some of the players for Arsenal, like Iwabuchi, Tobin Heath, of course, like Frida Manum, I just think the players that have been brought in have been that much to improve the squad in comparison to Man U. I think it maybe stayed the same more or less.
Connor, I know we were saying before you're learning about Arsenal, so maybe, this thumbnail is when we beat Arsenal last year, and I remember it. We dominated. It was only 1-0, but we should have been 5-0, and Honor was causing them nightmares. It was the same players pretty much. Tooney, who's absolutely on fire this season, doing so much. What do you think Just basically the same question back to you. I know you didn't really watch it a lot last year, but do you think Mark should maybe have not? I get every manager's going to play the same way. Do you think the club maybe should have looked for a similar style to Casey then, instead of this whole different style? What do you think?
I don't think you can put it down to that necessarily. I said on a show a couple of weeks ago that if Skinner wants to play this way, he needs to stick with it. But he needs to adapt it in big games, because he tried to play the same way as he did against Leicester and Reading, and tried to put that same kind of philosophy against Chelsea. And I know it was kind of our own mistakes, but we got absolutely battered on the counter-attack. And against City, you could argue in the first half that was happening again with Hemp, particularly on his side. No, who am I thinking of here? Not Hemp. I can't think of who I'm thinking of now. But anyway, yeah, so Skinner tried to play that same way with the high fullbacks, and like I said at the start, the number 6 role, whoever that is not dropping into the back 3, which is fine if you're playing Reading, Leicester, Birmingham, whoever it's going to be, kind of in the bottom 3. But when you're looking at playing a team like Chelsea and City, you can't do that, and that's the one thing I did notice with Skinner in the second half of the City game. The fullbacks dropped off quite a lot, about 10-15 yards you're looking at there. So I don't think United need to look at it and go a change of like a similar style to Casey, because Skinner can win this way, but you've just got to adapt it slightly in a bigger game. So I think when we come to play Arsenal, I hope that he's learned his lesson from Chelsea and City and don't try and deploy this high-flying fullbacks and the inside forwards, because you're just going to get absolutely turned over. So by the looks of the second half of the City game, I think he had learned that you can't do that against the sides. If you can go toe-to-toe with them with the players, then maybe. But obviously Casey was a bit more aware of that and played a better tactical game. So that's just what Skinner needs to do. And it looks like he's learning, like I said, just going off the one game against City, it does look like he learned his lesson from Chelsea. So fingers crossed.
Hopefully. I don't know. I'm not a tactical genius, so I don't know. But I do see why Vicky has maybe put this point in, because like you say, it just didn't look the same. But yes, second half, it did look better. And I think going in 1-0, they realised, listen, this team we're against 10 players. We can go for it here. And it made him change. I mean, Nancy, I know we sort of talked about it, seeing Man United. What do you think of Skinner's tactics? Obviously, it's different from Casey's. Are you impressed by his tactics? Do you think he needs to do more? Like what Connor says, change it a bit more. What do you think?
Yeah, I think potentially changing to suit the opposition a bit more. I do agree with kind of what everyone has said here, that it's just quite similar for every match and every opponent. It's not necessarily taking in consideration of teams like strengths or weaknesses. So I think maybe a bit more of that. I don't know, maybe if that's, I mean, obviously I imagine when he was in the US, he would have been following the WSL, and obviously he would be having the teams being scouted out and watching old matches and stuff like that. But potentially maybe it's kind of a little bit of a lack of knowledge of what every team has to offer in terms of strengths and weaknesses potentially. But yeah, I think maybe just a bit more like flexibility and adapting to games, differently, and like if you go 1-0 down, adapting to that in a different way. So yeah, I think that's what I'd like to see from him more.
That's why I brought you on. No, anyway. I want to touch on something that you did say, and I want to ask Connor about this. Frida Manum was a player that we were looking at, and like you said, she's set the world alight. She's been put in straight away. She's done really well. And a player that, for me, I think is on the same level, different type of player, but same level, probably even a bit higher. When we've had Mia on discussing this player and Frida, those two are talked to as the best, and like it's a different style, but Vilda Borisa. Connor, obviously you watched a few pre-season. I can't remember, did you come to Rangers with us? I can't remember, or
no,
did you watch
it?
You couldn't make it, but you watched it. I think we saw versus Liverpool as well, and I think she played pretty much every pre-season game. Then you've obviously seen her play against Reading, and then she came out versus Leicester, and I think she's like, you saw her play against Durham, which I didn't see either. I'll let Nancy talk about Frida and then Vilda Borisa, but I want you to talk about Borisa and then maybe why you think she's not playing enough, or do you think she'll play more? Sorry, I'm not putting it on your toes.
I mean, when we signed Bo Reisa, just a question before I answer it, where did she play before? Was she a 6 or was she more of an 8, like a box-to-box midfielder?
Both, I think.
So I've said, and I just said it a minute ago, that United at the moment, the one thing we're lacking is that number 6 who drops into a back 3 and that allows your fullbacks to play high. So if that's what Mark wants to do, great. But we need someone who drops deep, and Jackie and Zellum aren't doing that. Staniforth and Toon are more attack-minded anyway. So you need somebody who can do that. And I think the only reason why Bo Reisa is not getting in is because I don't think Zellum's been as bad as people make her out to be, personally. Obviously, everyone's entitled to their opinion of her. She's got one of the highest pass completion rates. She's got the most progressive passes in our team. So you take Zellum out, Bo Reisa's got to do the same. Now, obviously, I'm basing it off Reading and the brief appearance we've seen. Obviously, she played against Durham as well. Got a bit bullied in that game, but I don't know what United player didn't, to be honest, with the physicality that Durham has. She will get chances this season, but like we said before the season started, we're so stacked in midfield. Who do you drop? If you put Bo Reisa in, you're dropping your captain, you're dropping Jackie, or you're dropping Ella. Now Russo's back. You're not going to drop Ella. You're not going to drop Jackie because of the player she is, and you're not going to drop your captain. So where does Bo Reisa fit into that team? So it's unfortunate for her because I'm sure she is a really brilliant player, and I think she will have a part in the season because you will need a squad over the full course of the season, especially if we want to go deep in the cups as well. But I think I said this to John a lot. If Skinner keeps winning with the midfield that he's got, he's not going to change it, because why would you change a winning formula? If we don't beat, God forbid, if we don't beat Spurs or Everton, and maybe, we will. I'm not going to talk about the Arsenal game because I'm worried for that one. But if we then go on a bit of a losing run and start dropping points, that's where I think you could look at Mark and go, come on, you've got Bo Reisa on the bench here. That's where you use it. But I think while it's going all right, we're winning games, drew against City, you can't really change it, can you? And I do agree with what Vicky was saying. Hayley Ladd was brilliant against what I saw against Durham. And she is the only player I've seen so far that I think can do that 6. I haven't seen it from Zellum. I think she's an 8. I think Jackie's an 8. Staniforth's more of a 10. Bo Reisa's more of an 8. So we don't have a 6, sort of similar to the men's team, fully enough. So I think you're probably looking at Ladd. But like I said, you're not going to drop your captain, are you? I think that's the issue when you're talking about bringing players in. Who do you take out is the other question, and I just don't see who you can drop. Then would you
not play Ladd, Zellum, drop Jackie? I don't even mind. Drop Jackie. Jackie's a favourite, but drop Jackie. Then if you're not going to drop your captain, I think this is a debate that's gonna rumble on, because for us, when Reisa signed, that was it. I was saying we've got the best midfield now in the WSL, and I was looking at Ladd, Reisa, Jackie. Like you say, you can't drop Tooney, but that was it. And I thought, like I was saying, I saw Frida and Reisa. They were the two. They were combining in Sweden, and I'm seeing Frida banging in goals and basically being that creator. I mean, Nancy, you watch more Arsenal than me and Connor, and then you see someone like Frida. I mean, do you think she's added like that extra class? I mean, I'm not sure. Like you said, we've not even seen a lot of Bo Reisa, but she came with the same sort of fanfare, and we just haven't seen it. So I just want to get your opinions on both players, and then just basically touching on what Connor says about our midfield.
Yeah, I mean, Frida Manor is an incredible player. I think so. I went to the Arsenal-Chelsea. It was a pre-season game at the Emirates. It was the first time. I think it was her first game for Arsenal. First time I'd seen her play, and she was just immediately, obviously, kind of one of the best players on the pitch, which I found a bit strange because she, probably not as well known as some of the other signings that have come into the league, or just compared to the Chelsea attack or anything like that. But she just drives at players. She's got such determination. We've seen a few kind of great goals, like long range goals from her. She's very young as well. I think she's only 22, so she's kind of got that kind of fearlessness. And yeah, she's been, I think, to come into the Arsenal team that is already so strong, and to be kind of dominating, being one of the standout players and being so great is really impressive from her. I don't know, maybe if she works well under Jonas, because they're both from a similar area of the world. If maybe, they work well together because maybe they've got a kind of similar philosophy of football. potentially that's it. But I just think, she really enhances the Arsenal attack. I am surprised that Boa Reese are not getting too much time, because I think I said on this show when I was on it last, I think I said she was probably Man U's best signing, or the one that I expected to be really like key and impressive. But I mean, I don't know, because I think as well, like obviously injuries haven't really come into play for any team yet, apart from Man City. They've had the horrific injury crisis. So I know both Arsenal and Man U were quite struck down by injuries, but potentially if any of the Man U midfield gets injured, the fact that you've got someone like Boa Reese to come in is really great. Having that squad depth is brilliant. So obviously you don't want anyone to get injured, but at least, you've got her, and then she might take the opportunity, come into the midfield and show what she's about. And then from then on, maybe she'd be in the starting 11, regardless of whoever's injured coming back. So yeah, I think it's a lot. It's obviously still got a lot of the season to go. So I imagine she will get her chance. And yeah, it's whether she takes it or not.
Nancy, you took the words out of my mouth, in that she was the one that I think a lot of us were the most excited about. If you told me who was going to be the best player, it was her name was top. I mean, it seems like maybe Manian and Hannah, yeah, they've done great. But yeah, this is the one that I'm a bit, on edge about. John's just dropped a really good comment. I saw your eyes prick up. Connor, do you want to just touch on that? Both of you, and I'll touch on it as well.
There was a couple of comments similar to this as well. It absolutely bang on, because I say this all the time on the men's channel. It probably translates across the women's as well. That you can sign whoever you want. Like, they could be world class, but you can have a team full of Galacticos, so to speak. But if they don't fit the style you're trying to play and understand the instructions you're trying to put across, it's not going to work. So whether that is part to play why we keep seeing the same midfield, because that's the midfield that Skinner trusts to do the job that he's asking them to do. I personally disagree slightly, because I still think we need a proper six, and that's where Ladd comes into it. But yeah, I think that is a very, very good point. And I think, like you said, obviously it wasn't really his signing. It's not a bad signing to get, if you're just going to get handed a Boa Reese, it's not a bad player to get, is it? But yeah, I think maybe he just doesn't trust her enough yet to do the job that he's asking the midfield to do.
For me as well, with that kind of, these signings aren't his signings, but he did come in with a bit of time. And Nancy, you might know a bit more than me and Connor, but he did come in with a bit of time, and we were sort of told there's going to be aggressive recruitment as soon as we sign our manager. But then he sort of has since said, everything's fantastic. I've come in and it's wonderful. There's nothing I would change. This is the best. So he's saying all this. I've got absolute support. These are the kind of things he's saying in his press conferences. But yeah, someone like people are saying, not convinced that they're playing his style. They're not his players. Has he got support? Has he got that kind of backing? People still saying, what's so important that Mark Skinner, I don't even know what they're saying, but the people are getting riled up in the comments. That's all I'm saying. And I mean, like I said, Nancy, you'll know more than me. You might have heard a little bits. If you haven't, don't worry. But, you'd be surprised that he didn't bring in more players, or his players, and you've seen movement in January, because it's coming up to that point, isn't it?
Yeah, I think potentially a bit of movement in January. I mean, I suppose it's the same in all of football. Like, there's the belief that if a manager comes in, they've got to normally have quite a bit of time to bed in and get the players they want for their style. I mean, I suppose when he came in, I think maybe if he'd come in like at the end of last season, he would have probably had more of an influence on the transfer policy, or whoever that is. Like, potentially maybe the time he came in, the plans had been made, if that makes sense. So I suppose he will have the January transfer window, and then next summer as well. But I think it's quite hard to. I mean, I've said that, and then Jonas has kind of like disproved that theory. But I do think that it is fair to give him like a season, and then that summer give him a full summer for his own kind of transfers and stuff, and then see what happens. I mean, it's annoying because you have to be like really patient with it, but I suppose the results aren't too bad at the moment where it's a massive issue.
Yeah, and I think I understand what Marty's now saying. Why is it so important that he plays his style? And then Vix has sort of backed it up. In the early days, you're just trying to adapt. and then gradually introduce your style. I don't know. I'm seeing you, Connor. Do you want to say anything on that? Go on.
I can't remember for the life of me what book it is, but there's a fascinating book about the psychology in football. It took 10 odd years to write, but it talks about when a new manager comes in and this kind of theory of the new manager bounce and all this, that kind of thing that you see. The psychology tests that were done, over years, was that it takes roughly, depends on the kind of team, that you've 18 months to 3 years to drill out an old style from a player. Because as humans, if you're taught something, obviously for Casey for 2-3 years, then you've got a new guy coming in and going, no, I don't want you to do that. I want you to do this. You're sometimes in a game going to revert back to what you were told before. So I'm going to have to find it after this stream. Brilliant book about the kind of psychologies and how long it takes. But it's about 18 months to drill a style into a team and take that old style away. So people saying that, I respect that, why should he play? And I do agree in certain moments in games, you do have to change to what's happening on the pitch. But he needs to carry on playing the way he wants, because he can't say 1 week, right, we're going to do this, and then lose maybe one game or something. Go, right, scrap that. We're not doing that. We're going to do something else. But if that's what he wants to play, we will be proved right or wrong from the end of the season. But he's got to stick with it, because he can't keep chopping and changing. Because, like I said, it takes a while to drill an old system out of players.
And so it's a debate that's rumbling. But let's just see how it goes. I know John's just brought up some names that I don't want to mention. Anyway, I want to touch on sort of a second part, kind of, and just, I suppose, Nancy, what you think of this. There's a new age now in the WSL. It's more competitive, I'm seeing. Connor, you've just come in now and seen it, but, Brighton, Spurs, West Ham. West Ham were at the bottom. They just managed to survive. And now I'm seeing them going to it wasn't the Etihad, but, City's little ground. And they bullied City, at times. I can't remember her name, the girl who put the cross in. And then there's the Japanese girl who, the girl who got the first header, and the Japanese girl, quality signings. And I know a lot of my friends were saying, how did West Ham manage to sign her? Sort of like, how did Villa manage to sign Iwabuchi? And she's really dictating it, that Japanese girl, now for them. I mean, what do you think of your Brightons doing really well, Spurs doing really well? I mean, Rihanna Skinner started off quite, it was rocky roads, and now she's got them sort of top three. And obviously everyone knows about Hope Powell, but, Ollie Harder's come good. What do you think about those three teams that I've mentioned? And here's the Japanese girl. Oh, is she doing great?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's so welcome that it's so much more competitive. I think it's, too long being almost too predictable at where teams are going to finish and who wins what. I think obviously the fact that City have been so poor and are really struggling has contributed to it a bit, because, you've got like Spurs beating Man City, which would never ever have happened before. And that must have been their first win against City. But yeah, it's been really good to see. I think touching on Brighton, I think that's been a project that's been in the works for a long time. Like, yeah, you've got Hope Powell, who's such a respected manager in women's football. She's been there for a few seasons now, and she's been given time to kind of, like, I suppose what we were talking about, like, build her team. And now it's really working. And I know they've invested a lot in the team, and they've got like their new training ground and training facilities. So that's kind of like a long-term project coming good. I think probably the same with Spurs as well. I know that, they've had more and more investment in. I saw them play their opening game against Birmingham, and I thought they looked really impressive, apart from the fact that they just couldn't score. They were really wasteful. They've obviously now kind of started to fix that a bit. And then, yeah, West Ham looking good as well. And I think it's just, I suppose, as all these clubs are investing more, the women's teams are getting better. Like you said, the signings that every team is making is really, really high quality. And then it's great. I think the unpredictability of the league is just very entertaining. And I mean, I think as well, even Arsenal doing so well was quite unpredictable. I don't think if you asked anyone at the start of the season, who do you think will be top of the table, like 6 matches in, I don't think people would have said Arsenal. So it's been great so far.
Yeah, I mean, Connor, like I said, you only just come into it this season, and I think you agreed with this comment from Vicky if I'm right, yeah. The broadcasting deal, and we're seeing more. We're seeing, Kia Simon signed for Spurs. Hawaii, I can't say her name. She signed for Hawaii, signed for West Ham. Like Nancy says, Brighton keep investing. Even on the men's side, they keep investing and they're doing well. How is it changed? Maybe because I know you didn't see a lot last year, but the fact that it is competitive and everyone can beat everyone, does that make you want to watch it more? Say.
Yeah, well, that's exactly what it is, because ultimately football, whether you like it or not, is an entertainment business nowadays. So people need to be entertained while watching the game. And if you're going to every game thinking, well, we're not going to win this, like, there's no point. Whereas now you've got Leicester, held Chelsea for 86, 87 minutes or whatever it was. Teams have got a chance. And the three teams that you mentioned, Brighton, West Ham, Spurs, the one thing I've noticed watching all of them, they're difficult to beat. Like, they're not getting... They might get maybe turned over. Obviously, we saw with Villa as well. Held Arsenal up till half-time, played quite well, and then obviously the quality does take over then. But you're looking at these three teams and thinking that they're difficult to break down. They're not just going to be walked over anymore, which is good. It's good for the league. Obviously, Sky and BBC will help. Because as a player, if you're looking at it from, let's say, a European club, and you go in, look at the broadcast, broadcasting, and the spotlight's always on certain players now. You're seeing, certain things get highlighted on, replays getting watched back on Sky Sports News. You're seeing more coverage and more, things being put out. So players from abroad will be looking at it going, well, if I go there, I've got more exposure then, potentially to get me a move, potentially more money, bigger move and all these kind of things. So it's good for the league. And it's good for the players as well, because, like I said, it's more exposure for them. But it also makes it more entertaining to watch. And ultimately, that's why we watch football, because you go into every season with the hope that your team can exceed expectations, whatever that is, Champions League, win the league, avoid relegation, whatever. So, yeah, it's ultimately good. And it's like I said, all of those three teams that you mentioned, difficult to beat. And, I mean, the only team, to be honest, obviously, you just mentioned Arsenal there. They're the one team I've watched, and obviously Nancy's going to love this, that I've watched this season and gone, I cannot see any team beating them. Because obviously, scrolling along the bottom there, it's about Arsenal and winning the league and all this kind of thing. Who's going to beat Arsenal? I know it goes against what I was just saying. The kind of everyone can beat everyone. I'd say yes, apart from Arsenal. That's where I'll end that one.
What do you think, Nancy? What do you think of that? I know I'm going to go on to a different topic. What do you think? Do you think they will? Do you think it'll catch up? Do you think injuries will come back? I mean, because obviously at the minute, people probably thought last season in the second half, who's going to beat City?
Yeah.
And Barcelona, I get there's no Barcelona in our kind of league, but, that was the thing. But I did say whoever did sign, I said whoever signed that woman would win the league. I said it before. I said it when I heard the whispers, then it went quiet, and then obviously it was announced. But, Vicky's disagreeing. She thinks they're going to go for this. I had a new physio. What do you think? You're the Arsenal fan, Nancy. Sorry for sticking it on you, but yeah, exposing you out there to everyone.
Yeah, I think obviously I've got a bit of bias. I do agree with that idea that I think at the moment it looks really hard to see a team that can beat Arsenal. But I think, say for instance, in the reverse fixture against Chelsea, if Chelsea win, and they'd be playing at home, so they'd be very strong, then you only need kind of Arsenal to slip up a game, maybe against like Man U, or if City come back full strength, when they get their injured players back, they're going to be, they can't win the league at this point, but there would be a thorn in the sides of the teams that are going for the title. So I think it's definitely not a given. I'd say at this moment in time, it is very hard to see any team beat Arsenal given form. But yeah, obviously you've got injuries could come into place. The fact that Arsenal is still in the Champions League, you've got that extra kind of competition where you're going to be really putting a lot of effort into and focus. So, you might have a fixture on the weekend after the Champions League midweek game that they might lose because they're tired. So it's interesting, but I do think it is that Arsenal are the team to beat, definitely, and they've got such a just scoring goals for fun at the moment, hardly conceding, and It's a fun time to be an Arsenal fan anyway, I'll say that.
I think that's the main thing. I think for me as well, if Miedemar stays fit, she's the one player for me as a non-United fan who's just started watching this year, I think is just... I'm not even going to try and describe how good of a footballer she is because everyone will know if you watch the women's game, but she's just one player I've watched. Her and Harder, obviously, both strikers. But Miedemar especially, if she stays fit for this season and carries on the way she's played. I mean, just look at that front line that Arsenal have got. You're not going to get much better than that. And on the flip side, they're playing attacking football, if you want to say that. Scoring goals, but they're not conceding. The only team they've conceded to in the league is Chelsea on the opening day. Obviously, there was some controversial decisions in that game, but we won't talk about those. But like I said, so they're not conceding and they're scoring lots of goals as well. That's a good formula to have. Whereas I look at Chelsea and I've watched them this year and I think, yes, they've got the attacking threat. You know, they look at the players they've got. I mean, look at the bench they've got. It's ridiculous. But they look beatable. Every time I've watched Chelsea, I thought there's gaps there. You can beat this team. That's why I was so frustrated with United after the game. So I thought we could have beaten these. Like, they didn't look special, whereas Arsenal look that level ahead. They've already got the points gap. Chelsea have got to play City, sorry. So you're looking at it going, there could be 6 clear in a couple of weeks' time. So you never know.
Listen, you never know because we were clear as well. Yeah, let me take you back when we all thought we were going to win the league, or at least minimum. We thought we couldn't throw that away from 1st to 4th. But yeah, there you go. Injuries, you never know. Coming back after Christmas has always been Man United's issue. I'm not sure about Arsenal if that's really an issue for them, but maybe with the Champions League, like you say, that's when I think, and then it sort of touches on this point that Marty said about this. It seems like they've got that top 2, the Arsenal and the Chelsea, and then you've sort of got the bottom maybe 2, but then everyone else I think can beat everyone else, and then it only takes, like you said, that little one, and you're coming back and you're playing Brighton, bang, or playing West Ham, Spurs, I know they'll probably beat, but we've just been bigging up those 3 teams. It could be any of them. I just want to touch on something as well, guys, and I know we'll put it in the chat too, about the exposure, about players coming into the WSL and playing and getting shown on telly. And I want to touch on a player, and I hope no one minds me touching on her, but Maya Letizia, she was linked to a lot of big clubs in the summer. She could have gone Chelsea. She could have, I don't know if Arsenal wanted her. She could have gone City. And then I look at, say, like a Ruby Mace who did go City, and a Lauren James who went Chelsea, and they're not playing, but yeah, Maya's sort of up there as sort of like the top player. Everyone's looking at her. She's got that exposure. She's being talked about, like you say, on Sky. Do you think now this is the sort of change in the Sky sort of maybe going to change that for young players? They're going to want to play now. I'm not saying that the other 2 don't want to play, but you're going to want to play at a Bristol or not a Bristol, but like a bottom. I mean, they're not even bottom. We can't say that. But, mid-table, play at a Villa. I look at Liv McLaughlin. She's playing at Villa, yeah? And she's looking absolutely amazing. I was there when she got her debut against Arsenal. But she was one of the standout players for Villa. So if then Chelsea come in for her, why would she go to Chelsea when she's playing for Villa and she's getting talked about all the time? And more people are saying her name. I mean, I see you nodding, Nancy. What do you think? Do you think that the deal is... This is changing for young players now?
Yeah, definitely. And I think Ruby Mace and Lauren James are great examples because Ruby Mace went to City. I think the situation there is really weird because she plays centre-back a lot. They haven't had all their centre-backs are injured. And then, Gareth Taylor was playing Jill Scott at a midfielder at centre-back instead of Ruby Mace. And I thought it was strange because Ruby Mace went on loan to Birmingham, so she was at Arsenal. She went on loan to Birmingham. She played. She was amazing, really, really big player for them. I think a big player and really helped them secure survival in the WSL and not go down into the Championship. Yeah, and didn't I'm just surprised that she hasn't played for City. Lauren James, obviously, not 100% sure what's going on there at Chelsea, but hasn't played. Obviously, I think Emma Hayes has said there's been a bit of getting her up to the right level or I don't know really what's happening there. But essentially, yeah, you've got two really, really, really talented young players who are just now not really getting playing time. And like you said, when you compare them to players like Letizia that are at clubs where they're getting, 90 minutes every week, they're kind of the star players. And now, like you said, because of Sky, when you've got the analysis and stuff, they're also getting that kind of promotion. And like, the public people are talking about them. And yeah, I 100% think if I was a young player in the WSL, I'd think I'd be wanting to really like make a name for myself, being a key player for a team kind of where there's a chance for me to play, as opposed to like City, Chelsea, Arsenal. So
you need to play games, don't you? The only way you're going to improve is playing games. And unfortunately, at the moment, the way the WSL is set up, there's not enough teams for full rotation. You'll see a couple, but you're not going to get if you go to City, Chelsea, Arsenal, the squads are so big. I mean, you look at the quality of players on the bench. As a younger player, you're probably looking at going, I'm not really going to get a chance here. So now, like you just said there, you bang on when you're talking about Sky and BBC and everything else with the analysis. You're better off going to like a Brighton or a Villa or somebody kind of, even if it's a higher team championship side, because there's that potential that you could go up into I just think playing time, I can't stress enough how important that is for these younger players, because you can train all you want, but unless you're playing games, you're not going to get match experience and you're not going to improve as a player. So the exposure helps, but definitely these younger players will benefit from the likes of Brighton, Villa, maybe even Everton and teams like that.
I mean, do you think, because even when you touched on Everton, they signed Hannah Bennison, and apparently Bayern Munich was in for her, and obviously, if you look at the two names, Everton, Bayern Munich, but she chose Everton, and, her profile is going up. I think a lot of people, when she signed, this one's going to be this one's going to be that. And I mean, I suppose, Connor, I don't know how much you watch a thing, but I mean, have you seen Letizia? Have you seen any of these young players? I mean, Bennison scored against Birmingham, great goal. I think players need to play, but there was a point sort of, and Nancy will sort of maybe know what I'm saying, where in England they just used to sort of pick only the top team. So I think that's sort of changing now. Serena is sort of picking who is playing. Anyone can touch on that, because that's just my point.
I can answer it very briefly, and then I'll let Nancy go, because I've only got a brief answer. No, I haven't seen these two players, but the fact I've heard of them shows the exposure that it's doing, because I would not have heard of these players otherwise. Like, the only girls really I'd heard of before were United players. I didn't really take an interest in other teams, whereas now, because of Sky and BBC, I've heard of these players, and you kind of monitor them and go, okay, they're pulling up through the ranks, going to, I'm not even going to say lesser teams, because we know how competitive, and that we go what we were saying earlier about the league being more competitive. It's now a more attractive proposition to go to some of these teams, because you're not going to go there, and I mean, in Birmingham, Leicester, Reading's case, maybe slightly different, but you're not going there thinking, you're not joining a losing team, if that makes sense. You've always got that hope that you're going to get game time, but also you're in a competitive team as well. So I think that's just a positive, that the fact that someone like me or a newer fan has heard of these players, that's only good for them because of the more exposure on them.
Yeah, and I just want to, I suppose, touch back to where we were last week, England. Nancy, what do you think about Serena? She is pulling them out of everyone. I think everyone's getting a chance. She brought back the 23s, which I think is good. So we did see, Babajide play for the 23s, Maya Letizia, all them girls that we're talking about are getting their chance now, sort of again with England. And then it's less of the kind of, like Vic says, mix of different teams. It's not just sort of pulling it from the top three. It's from everywhere. What's your thoughts on Serena so far? I know we started off as WSL, but I'd like to hear that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm very happy with how it's going so far. I do agree. I think that it's less. I mean, obviously she hasn't quite been in the role long enough to see if she does have favourites, but she does seem to be kind of, picking like a range of players and not necessarily going off names. Like, I was say Jordan Nobbs didn't get picked for the England squad, and I was a bit like, that's maybe not the best decision. But then actually thinking about it, it's Jordan Nobbs has only just come back from injury, so she hasn't played that much. So Wiegman is actually making that decision based off form as opposed to the name. Jordan obviously being the big player. So yeah, I mean, it's been harder to see as well because maybe the level of opposition isn't quite. If we want to win the Euros next year, you need to play some obviously of the bigger teams, and I think we've got that tournament in February where I can't remember the teams. I want to say France.
Germany's one. It's big teams.
Maybe. The teams that we're going to be wanting to beat if we're going to win the Euros. So that's going to be a better test. But so far, I'm happy with how she's playing. I think it's. I wasn't a big fan of the Phil Neville era, so it's. I'm glad to see a new manager come in who is proven in women's football. Obviously, got the Netherlands, won them the Euros, and got them to the World Cup final. So I'm hoping she can work the same magic with England.
I think the only person who's a fan of Neville is Ben, who's on this channel. He's a big Man United fan, and I think he just does it just to sort of rile up the hardcore England fans rather than actually thinking that equality. But this comment brought back Hampton, and Hampton's someone I've seen a couple of times. Probably you've seen her as well, Connor, if you've seen any Villa games, and I think she's been classed. There's a few hiccups, few things but she's young, you know what I mean? And I think the fact that she stopped with this, I thought it was crazy. Always picking Telford or always picking Bardsley. And I think to myself, how can you pick someone who's on the bench, but not even on the bench and got chances and coming in? It's someone who's sort of never plays. And I think we saw that with Phil. He always picked an older keeper, didn't he? And you just thought, what's the point? And I think now this is the first time I've seen them and they've actually picked the three best keepers at the moment. Yeah. Mary picked, Hannah's picked, and I think the Everton keeper, McKeever's picked. So for me, I think she's already. I know it's only early days, and wait to see what happens. But I think potentially for your Roebuck and not Roebuck, because she'll probably come back in. But for your older keepers, maybe they were just sort of there on their name. I don't know, but it was. I think we all thought it was a bit weird how that kept.
It was the same for the Olympics as well. It's only just recently changed. I think we've got so many good young talented goalkeepers, and you'd have someone like Telford, Carly Telford, or Bardsley there, essentially just to be there. But I don't think you need that when you've got 5 young English keepers who are great. So I'm really happy. That is one of definitely the best things about this new reign, that she's actually just bringing in through the younger keepers now.
Controversial opinions there, but I do think Hampton is absolutely. I mean, watching her at Birmingham, now watching her at Villa, I do think she's absolutely class. Hampton, Roebuck's class though. That's what I will say. And I'm biased. Ramsey coming through now at Birmingham. That's what she needs, playing games. But that's a different debate. And there's a little debate. Captain. I'd like to actually, Nancy, what do you think on the captain before we wrap up? Or we had anything more?
I think for me, I'd actually really like Leah Williamson. I understand the argument for bronze, but I think if you're going for bronze, why not stick with Steph Houghton? But I just think it is kind of the older guard. I do think bronze will probably stick around for quite a bit longer. But I think if you're going with this new younger team, maybe go for someone that is a bit younger. I mean, Williamson, she has got the leadership qualities. I think she's well respected. I think she's whether in defence or midfield, I think she's going to be one of the mainstays for England for years to come. So maybe just start kind of bedding that in now. I think I could understand why if Bigman goes for bronze or Steph, I understand it. But for me, I'd love to see Williamson as the permanent captain. Yeah, there Connor, we go. Yeah.
Yeah, no, Connor. I mean, what do you think? I've got my little 2 pence that I'll add in after Connor.
To be honest, I think I said to you backstage, I don't watch much England just because it's an old school United thing that England fans, United fans, it goes back. But what I will say, someone's there's a couple of Ella Toon comments from Stuart there. I'd love to see a United girl get it. I can't see it, but other than that, you look at Leah, Steph. I got to say though, Lucy Bronze from a couple of years ago. Obviously, I've just been injured recently, but she was probably still is to close to one of the best players I've seen play live. I saw her years and years ago, about 4 or 5 years ago now. So I have I've always kind of had a little bit of a soft spot for Lucy Bronze because she was one of the players when I was watching women's football 4 or 5 years ago that kind of got me interested in going, bloody hell, she's good. So I do kind of have a soft spot for her. So it's difficult, isn't it? Because you want to, it's a new kind of era, so to speak, refresh it a little bit. But, do you go for old reliable, so to speak?
Yeah, I think she is refreshing it. I mean, we've seen 5 United players constantly in it, whether they remain there. But I do think Hannah will come in. I do think Mannion will come in. I think we'll see more United girls, and there's United girls coming up through the 23s and the 19s. So I think we're gonna, and even the 17s. Had a few United girls in when I watched a couple of weeks ago. So it's looking bright that potentially one day it might be a future United captain. I don't think just yet. But I think in terms of now, if we're going to look, my point is she played Leah, but she's still not saying it. So I do agree with what people are saying. She's obviously waiting for Bronze or waiting for Steph. I don't know, because I think if it was going to be Steph, she would have given it Steph straight away. So I think potentially she's waiting for Bronze. I can see why, maybe wants that experience in. But I think Leah's done so well that you just give it her, for me, in my opinion. She, I saw Ian Wright booting off, going, I hate when managers do this, just say who it is. And at the end of the day as well, I agree with what he said, but for me, everyone should be a captain as well. So it shouldn't matter who's got it. And I think in England, sometimes we put too much emphasis on this is your captain. Whereas I look at Barcelona or something, there's 4 girls holding the captaincy, and I think, yeah, give it 3 people, who cares? I think, I don't know, it might not be a popular opinion, but for me, it's the end of the road for Steph. I think there's better central defenders out there, but, I think there's still more for Bronze. Like I said, I think Bronze is one that will play. I think it's the end of the road for a lot of them, the older ones now, and I just want to see the new group now. I want to see more young players being brought through. I want to see Maya Letizia, that's what I want to see if we're going to do anything. And, yep, Dennis has called it right. I want to see Ebony Salmon playing more, and hopefully in the next couple of games we'll see her in the first team again. I know we've just touched on it, and I can see Connor, but no, I just want to talk. I know it's a long while away. Well, 2 weeks. Man United playing Spurs. It's a big game for us. Spurs are doing really well. We're doing well. I don't want to go into a full preview because we're going to wrap up, but do you think that's going to really sort of lay it down? I'm going to come to you, Connor. Do you think that's really going to be I know we're talking here, we've only played Leicester, we've only played this is sort of, we played the top teams, played the bottom teams. This is going to be the real test, and then Everton. But Spurs away, Everton is away as well. I mean, what's your thought coming into this period now for United?
Yeah, I mean, I've written it down on the notes I've got ready for this show that United's next 2 games will set the tone to whether we get top 3 or not, in my opinion, because we've shown that we can almost hold our own. I know it was against a 10-player City side, and that Chelsea game was a one-off because we pretty much just handed them the win anyway, and I think we do have enough to kind of compete. We know we've shown we can beat the bottom sides. The only difference at the moment that I can see between us and the other sides kind of around us, Spurs, Brighton, so on, is what I said earlier about those teams are difficult to beat. We leak a lot of chances, especially even against Leicester, Reading, even Birmingham. They had a lot of decent chances. So if we're going to go into the top 3, and Spurs and Everton, that's why I said it would set the tone, because it would show whether we've improved enough to potentially, we should be beating them anyway with kind of the players we've got on form right now. But we need to stop leaking as many chances as we do, because it's great, potentially we're trying to outscore team. It's like I've said for weeks, you can get away with it against Reading, Birmingham, Leicester. You're not going to be able to get away with it against Spurs and Everton, in my opinion. So we definitely have enough to be confident going down there and going up to Everton, but we cannot concede the kind of chances we have been. Like I said, we got lucky a little bit against Leicester. They had a couple of chances scored. Reading had a couple of chances in the first half. Birmingham had some really clear-cut ones, and on a better side would take them. So, yeah, it would definitely set the tone. I know, obviously, what United fans from last season think, we were top of the league in January, and look how that changed. I know that a lot can change between now and kind of April, May time, but we need to show now and get the confidence and the belief in the side that we can beat the teams around us. And that will then kind of set the tone moving forward, that we can beat these teams. We can be competitive against the top teams, and we don't need to worry so much, against the bottom 3. So we also need to beat them as well, those two teams as well, because we've got Arsenal straight after. So we need to get 6 points ready.
So we're not talking about Arsenal. We've talked too much about that now. No, Nancy, I just want to know your thoughts. United are coming up, Spurs, Everton, both away, big games. Like what Connor says, it sets the tone, really, these games of who's going to maybe, I know we all say City will come back and this and that, yeah, but who will be there, lay a marker down? What do you think? And, as a neutral watching it, we talked about these big teams, anyone can beat anyone. With these two games coming up, how do you see it?
I think Man U could definitely win both, especially if Everton, they're in a bit of a turbulent period now as well, because, they need their new manager in place. Or they'll be adjusting to that. So I think Man U can definitely win both. And it's, at this point in the middle of the table, it's literally a case of getting those 3 points and then just climbing. I think it's going to definitely be quite a interesting period where it's going to be like, are the Tottenhams and the Brightons, are they going to start dropping off, or are they going to sustain this period of momentum that they've got? So I think if Man U can come out of it, the other end of, in a few weeks' time with 6 points, and you've got the teams around them losing points, it could be looking pretty good going into that Arsenal game. So, I think I'd be confident if I was a Man U fan.
Yeah, that's all I have to say. I don't know. I can't say how I feel about it now. I'm going to have to wait and see. Not Marnie. What am I saying? Marty, we adapt. We'll just go with the same style. I think we played Brighton in the Alessia Russo is scoring goals. Could be a 3-point match. I don't know what you mean. But listen, I think we played Brighton and it was a 1-1. And I think there was a lot of chances that they had, like what Connor says, giving chances away. And I think, that's what I think people will be worried about, because, Birmingham could have scored and it's okay. We know we're going to score versus a Birmingham, scored about 3, I think it was 3-0. But, so it would have been 3-1, but you won't get a lot of chances. And then these were the games, Brighton, we lost to Brighton away last time. Spurs, we did get the 6 points, and we do beat Spurs a lot. We do beat Everton a lot, but, they've improved as well. So, I think we're gonna wrap up now, guys. But we've had 15, 10 people liking it, getting in the comments. We've had a fiery debate. I want to thank Nancy for coming back on, because it's always a great when you come on and you're always up for the chat, and I really love it. And then Connor for being my wingman, sitting in my seat today, and I'm sitting in John's. John talking about what's coming up next. Ben and Matt on Saturday night. A good show on Friday. Fans Forum. I think Andy's running that one. Just want to say thanks to everyone. Nancy coming on. Thanks, guys. Drop the like on it. Drop the comment. Subscribe. All that jazz. You know what to do. And see you soon, guys.